welcome back. I'm Rage.
I'm Sage.
And this is Hearthstone news with SageNtheRage.
So today we're talking about some of the balance changes that are going to take effect about any time now.
Yeah, and so we did a piece on possible upcoming Druid nerfs about a week ago. And today I just want to start off with, and we will all go down together. Blizzard, in their typical fashion, chose not just to nerf the Druid, which was the 100% brought to the tournament deck. It wasn't the 30% played total in the ladder. They decided to nerf other classes.
Yeah, they hit Druid, Warrior, and Shaman. So let's jump right in and take a look.
Alright, so starting with the Druid. The big problem with the Druid was lots of people were pointing towards Ultimate Infestation. They were pointing towards Spreading Plague. And a lot of the Crystal Jade ramp-up cards that gave an empty mana crystal and a Jade summon as well. And so Blizzard did not actually go after any of those seasonal cards.
Well, they did go after Spreading Plague.
Spreading Plague got increased from 5 to 6.
Yeah.
And Innervate, though, took its biggest one. And that's what we want to point out right here. Is that it used to give 2 mana crystals this turn only, and now it's 1.
Basically a coin now.
Basically a coin. And I understand why they did what they did along with a lot of these cards. And so they chose to go after the classic cards instead of the seasonal cards. And
yeah,
I kind of get what they're saying as we go through all these, and each one kind of remember this phrase here, is why nerf a seasonal card that would be out of play by April when you have these staple cards that never come out of certain decks. They're always played with the highest win rates, and these cards are part of the kind of lingering or getting stale meta.
Yeah, these cards are always going to be there until they get Hall of Famed at some point, depending on the card. And if these cards keep showing up in the most powerful decks time and again, it starts to grow stale after a while.
Yep. And so a lot of the ramp, that's the problem with the Jade Druid, the big one that everybody's complaining about, is the ramp, is getting 2 extra mana crystals to being able to get the extra empty mana crystal, to throw in a Nourish where you then pick, you know, another empty mana crystal, or any of those other cards that ramp the Druid up, which is what makes Ultimate Infestation feel like it's such overpowered, because the Druid can get to it really fast.
Yeah, and all of a sudden, out of nowhere, Druid's 4 turns ahead of you.
And they've just laid down 5 damage, summoned a 5/5, gotten 5 armor, and drew 5 cards.
Yeah, exactly.
So once that happens, there's no keeping up. So that it makes Ultimate Infestation feel worse than it really is when they ramp that fast to it. So this makes sense. It can slow down a lot of speed and ramp on the Druid, and yet still be a staple card, because who doesn't want an extra coin in their deck? A lot of rogues play the counterfeit coin.
Yeah, guaranteed coin's just good.
It's still good, and it slows them down from getting to all those other problematic cards. Now, I still think some of those other cards are problematic in the fact that Druid has way too many. They have 4 different gain and empty mana crystal cards now, between one of their minions, between the Jade one, their original Nourish, and another one. So they have a lot of ways to ramp still, but this can at least slow down them being able to ramp multiple times in one turn.
Yeah, I think this reels them back in, because sad to say, ramping is a key component of the Druid class. So unless you go into the Druid and completely rework them, I don't think there's much you can do to fix the empty mana crystals quite yet.
Absolutely.
I feel like mid-season is a bad time to really go in there and...
Yeah, to rearrange the way a class works. And that's part of what playing a Druid is. You give up a lot of early game to gain that ramp, so that when your opponent is at mid-game, you're at end-game.
Yeah.
So let's go to the next one besides Innervate. This caused a lot of heat.
Yeah, we can touch more on the heat in a little bit, but let's focus on the card itself right now.
Fiery War Axe for Warriors has been a staple in every meta deck. It's a great card. You come out, it gives you control, especially if you coin into it at 2 mana, what it used to be before the nerfs are going to go live. And it would allow you to control turn 1, possibly control turn 2. And it was just a great card to dismiss a lot of minions and get stuff out there fast. It was a staple card.
You could use Fiery War Axe to establish your board state in the early game.
Yep, and giving you that control over everything else going on. It could help you control a zoo deck or an aggro deck. It's just really good. Yep, all those different types. So we're going to touch more on this later, with these nerfs, but Fiery War Axe got nerfed. This one, I don't quite understand. Hex went from 3 mana cost to 4 mana cost. And I guess that was because of a lot of combinations of minion cards that could go with it.
Yeah.
For the Shaman. But I never felt that Hex was overpowered to begin with. There's only 2 of them in a deck. You can kind of predict when your opponent, if their Shaman is going to use a Hex. And sometimes you can bait them into using it and other times not. And I never felt like it was too powerful.
No, I never really thought that Hex was particularly oppressive of a card. I don't see how this really fixes the issues they were talking about. Because they were saying that Shaman is kind of the everyman class. You know, it's not great at anything, but it's not bad at anything.
Yep.
It just kind of fills all roles. But nerfing Hex really doesn't change that.
No. And again, it goes back to the original point, though, that we made earlier about change the classic cards, and hopefully, you know, some of these will start to play less so that we can introduce some people. Will play newer cards when the new seasons come out.
Yeah.
Don't nerf the season that's going to be put on hold later on and gotten rid of by April or so this year.
Unless something truly is out of hand. You
exactly.
know?
So this one goes into that same rule again of new versus old. A lot of people are calling this a paladin nerf because a lot of paladins play Murlocs.
It makes sense.
And I don't really mind this nerf at all. 3 mana, it gives you a 3/3, and it can buff everything else with 2/1. That's insane.
Yeah, that was solid.
It's a great card. It's still a great card because you have an opposite Murloc, which we'll pull up the decks later on. I don't remember the name off the top of my head. I'm having a brain cramp. But there are other Murlocs that buff health.
Yeah.
And so you kind of play them in synergy together and still get that effect. This one gives the attack, the other one gives the health. It makes sense. And let's be real, when you're really playing in a fast, aggressive deck, yes, health is important to be able to survive the hits from AoE, you know, board clearing abilities. But that's the gamble you play on an aggressive deck. Is if your opponent clears it, you know, you're standing there kind of going, eh.
Let's look at it from this perspective. You've already got a lot of Murlocs out on the board, and they're off of Summoning Sickness. You slap this guy down, they're instantly better. Mm-hmm. Then they're already ready to swing. That's 2 extra damage per Murloc.
Yep. So, I mean, I think it's a nerf to anyone who plays Murloc decks, but sometimes aggro Murlocs are a little crazy. I don't think this really needed to happen, but it's not a bad decision at all. It is a classic card that stays in rotation, so not that bad. Spreading Plague got increased from 5 to 6. I still think this could go all the way up, maybe even to 7. 6 isn't bad, because, you know, if you're playing an aggro deck, Druids aren't really good on defense till the end game when they get, you know, their Iron Tree, whatever the heck that thing is, the 8/8 monster, or Taunt. But, you know, being able to slap this thing down and get a 1/5 is crazy. I think a better nerf, and I saw this another video, I don't remember who it was, but I was watching stuff on this. I think it would be better if it summoned 1/4s and stayed at 5. Because 5 is a powerful number.
Yeah.
4, a lot of minions come out that way.
It is tough to take out 5 just up front. Mm-hmm. This card is really weird, and I can see where Blizzard runs into the trouble with balancing it, because it's completely dependent on your opponent, whether this is a dud or a star. Mm-hmm. Because, like, your opponent has 2 creatures out, you got none. Sure, you get 2 out, but 2 1/5s for 6, I don't know if that's worth it.
I mean, I don't know, though. Like, a 1/5, if you put a 2-mana cost 1/5 with Taunt in my deck, I'd play it in every deck.
Oh, yeah.
That's a great cost. And so, let's say it's 2 mana, and you have, you know, 2 on the board, that would be 4 mana crystals. That's almost the 5 that it's worth. Now, once you exceed that 2 mark, then it becomes, the value just keeps gaining exponentially.
Yeah, this is basically a card that would be a running it back card.
Yep.
You know, you're down in board state, you need something to catch back up. But I definitely think this is no easy fix. I think the 1/4 cost, like you said, probably would be a better way to go, but we'll see what the 6 mana does.
Because I think if it was 4, your opponent could still deal with it, and it would still buy you the time and defense you need.
Yeah.
Filling both things. So, then they talk about Ultimate Infestation, some other cards that people mentioned, but those are the major nerfs coming up. So in true Blizzard fashion, not only one person gets nerfed, but we all get nerfed together. So, back to the Fiery War Axe. Let's go over here. The title of this article. No, Hearthstone doesn't think its players are idiots. Sage, you want to take this one away for a little bit?
Okay, so basically what happened was, with the Fiery War Axe nerf, Blizzard talked about how the alternative was instead of nerfing the mana up to 3, they could have nerfed the damage down to 2, so it'd be a 2/2 War Axe instead of a 3/2 War Axe. And their reasoning for this is they said they'd rather nerf mana if all other things are equal. Well, they say that because they think that players looking at a card, they'll just know what the card does, they'll play it out, and they won't realize that the damage has been nerfed. So for 2 mana, they're not getting their 3/2 anymore, they're getting a 2/2, and then they'll be confused. Well, a lot of players took offense to that, saying, oh, Blizzard doesn't think we know how to read cards, they think we're stupid. So, we have to wait till, if on turn 2 we won't get the green borders, so then our dumb brains will finally catch up to it. But Blizzard retorts saying, no, we don't think you're stupid, we think you're smart enough to memorize thousands of cards, and you won't look at a card because you already got it memorized, so you'll just play it.
I think it's worded really good in this article. I'm going to read part of it. Some Hearthstone fans are reading this as people would be confused if we changed a card too much, but the mana number is big and prominent, so they're more likely to understand it. This has resulted in some anger and comedy, and notably on Reddit. Fiery word, this text is so confusing. I'm not going to click the video, but other than making fun of the idea that the mana is somehow easier to see than the health or attack values just because it's on the top of the card, just look at the fans' joke idea for Tavern Brawl. Others are playing along, pretending to be as dumb as that Blizzard sees them. So this has caused a little bit of outrage and some meme creating and some humor from the community. And look at the card. I feel like you can easily see what happened here. I don't need someone to tell me it's easier to read up here. At the same time, I kind of understand Blizzard's logic. I kind of understand the community's logic.
Yeah.
Like, we're not dumb. We memorize tons of cards, and we always pay attention to when nerfs come out because we have to adjust our decks.
Yeah.
And yes, the new player might be a little confused by it, but if you're a new player and you're seeing it for the first time, when I first started back up a couple months ago, I was reading every card because I was like, what does this do?
Well, and I like to look at it like this. Even if you do make the mistake, and they nerf the attack on it, you'll only make that mistake once.
Yep. And that's what I've been doing the last month and a half while I've been playing and getting acclimated to Hearthstone again, is reading every single card. And when I make a mistake, go, oh, that doesn't do what I initially quick scanned Reddit did. And people are going to figure that stuff out. I don't think we need any form of hand-holding.
Yeah. Now, you can debate all day whether mana or damage should have been nerfed, or whether Fiery War Axe shouldn't have been nerfed at all. But at the end of the day, I think people are smart enough to know, or at least figure out, whether something's been nerfed or not.
Yep, absolutely. And I think you need to trust your player base. Because we write articles, we make YouTube videos, we read stuff all the time, we're in forums nonstop. We want to know what's going on, and we're probably going to educate ourselves before you think we really have educated ourselves. Look at the amount of data mining that goes on in modern gaming today.
Oh yeah, people dig into stuff that companies don't even want you to know about until months down the line.
Exactly, but we predict and know and guess, and that's what makes being a part of the community so much fun. So to discount that community, I think Blizzard is in the wrong there. At the same time, I kind of understand what they're saying, but I don't really agree with the way they went about it. And so this brings us back to the major alt point here with these cards. Gotta keep the meta fresh. If we have cards that have been in play non-stop since Hearthstone launched, maybe it's time to adjust these cards so that people can use and enjoy more of the new cards.
I mean, let's look at it from this point of view. What is more exciting? Playing with the same cards you've had since day one, or opening a brand new pack and getting that sweet, shiny new legendary, and just building a deck around it?
Yep, and unfortunately, that doesn't happen a lot, because in the community world, you create a cookie-cutter deck.
Yeah.
It does the best, it performs really well, and everybody falls in line, and some of the creativity gets lost too. And yes, which one feels better, opening the pack or playing the same old? But I think a lot of people would retort, you know what feels good? Winning. And I will use the cookie-cutter deck to win.
Exactly, and that's why I think the old cards that are tried and true maybe need to get reined in a bit so that those new legendaries can win.
Or just new spells, new minions, whatever the case, you know?
Yeah.
Something that really...
We need design
excites.
space where all kinds of decks are viable.
Absolutely. So there's your nerfs coming up, and we're all getting nerfed together. Well, not all of us, but most of us. Murloc decks, Shamans, Warriors, and Druids.
Let us know down in the comments what you think about all these nerfs.
Let us know, and if we screwed some up, let us know that too. If you have any input, we'd love to read about it, because Sage and I love Hearthstone. Like and subscribe. Thanks for watching.
Peace.